Good afternoon mga ka-HR. I think it's a lovely afternoon. Sorry, hindi ko masyado makita yung labas dahil maghapon po akong nasa loob ng bahay and doing my online DOLE 13-month reporting. At hanggang ngayon hindi nagluloko ang site. Kaya naman marami akong mga nakaka-relate ako doon sa mga HR na hindi pa nakakapag-submit ng kanilang online, ng kanilang 13-month online. Pero syempre, hindi ko pwedeng makalimutan ang aming baby, ang HR e-knowledge ng HR Calabarzon. Kaya this afternoon, please guys, join us via Zoom because we have still available slot para sa mga ka-HR natin na gustong mag-join at magkaroon ng interaction with our speaker today. Yes, this afternoon medyo marami tayong mga HR na hindi nagawa last year yung kanilang mga strategic planning with their company. Kaya this afternoon, bibigyan tayo ng mga tips ng ating speaker para paano nga ba mag-facilitate o gumawa ng strategic planning. Pero bago po yan, I'll share my screen. Hello po sa ating mga HR na pumapasok ngayon sa ating Facebook at sa ating Zoom. Yan. Okay. I am very much excited mga ka-HR dahil sa ngayon, para sa ating nalalapit na 3 years anniversary ay nasa 9,600 plus members na po tayo at patuloy na dumadami ang tumatangkilik sa HR Calabarzon sa ating HR e-knowledge at HR business partner learning series. Dahil diyan, syempre po, mas ipinapangako po namin na magkakaroon pa tayo ng mas maraming learning. Magkakaroon rin tayo ng face-to-face. Sana matulungan nyo kami makahanap ng medyo murang venue para po sa ating pinaplano na HR Business Partner and Learning Series para sa Cavite, Laguna, Batangas, Rizal, Quezon, Bulacan, and NCR. O hindi pang HR Calabarzon lang ang ating HR Business Partner Learning Series with no other than Ma'am Vivian na nakasama natin for whole 2022 para sa HR Business Partner virtual. Pero ngayon, face-to-face na. Kaya kita-kits message nyo lang po ako para po matuloy na ang ating face-to-face HR Business Partner and Learning Series. At syempre, meron pa tayong isa pang good news. Magkakaroon din naman tayo ng tinatawag nating Pay It Forward. Hindi po ito para lang sa mga HR practitioner, pero para din po ito sa mga HR student sa Cavite, Laguna, Batangas, Rizal, Quezon, NCR, and Bulacan. Magkakaroon po tayo ng introduction to HR, kung ano ba talaga ang trabaho na haharapin ng ating mga HR enthusiast o mga HR student na nag-aaral ngayon. At syempre, gagraduate. Ano ba yung kanilang matututunan o kanilang kakaharapin na kinakaharap nating mga HR practitioner. Ayan, watch out for that at sana po marami tayong makuhang mga connection na makakatulong sa atin para maipagpatuloy ang ating planong face-to-face learning series. At dahil dyan, ano nga ba ang HR Calabarzon? Bakit ba may mga ganito si HR Calabarzon? Ang HR Calabarzon po is a registered non-profit organization na nagpo-provide po ng virtual and face-to-face learning sa lahat po ng HR practitioner and enthusiasts in Calabarzon. Also, syempre, dahil medyo dumadami na ang ating network, nakakasama po natin ang North Luzon, ang Visayas, Mindanao, and NCR. Kaya naman ipagpapatuloy po natin sa tulong ng mga kasamahan nating ka-HR dito sa Calabarzon. Sa lahat po ng gusto at nais kumuha ng e-certificate, binago po natin ang ating policy sa pagkuha ng e-certificate. Ang e-certificate link po ay available hanggang mamaya lang po, 11:59. Ngayong gabi lang po. Hindi na po siya available hanggang next week. Dahil gusto po namin, dahil may mga estudyante na kailangan agad yung e-certificate. Kaya po ang e-certificate ay papadala natin after 2 working days. Ibig sabihin po, Wednesday next week, matatanggap niyo po ang e-certificate Basta hindi po kasama ang Saturday, Sunday, at holiday. Siyempre po, dati pa rin, kagaya ng dati pa rin nating ipinapakiusap, please ensure na yung Google Form po na ipopost po natin ay ma-fill upan nyo ng tama, ng first name nyo, middle initial, and last name. Maki-check po ng spelling. Kasi minsan po, may mga mali po. Kung ano po yung nasa Google Form, yun po yung ginagawa namin mismo sa e-certificate. At syempre, hindi pa rin po nagbabago ang ating minimal fee, 50 pesos per attendee per webinar. Ulitin po namin, hindi po kami nag-i-entertain ng e-certificate via email nor messenger para po sa auditing purpose. Nagpapasa na po kasi tayo ng ating mga monthly reports sa BIR. Yan, syempre po ang HR Calabarzon ay hindi matatapos magpasalamat sa lahat ng ating mga ka-HR na patuloy na sumusubaybay at syempre sa ating mga sponsor. Ang Certified Compensation and Benefit Professional. Syempre po, ito ay mula sa International HR. Kayo po ay aming iniimbitahan dito po sa darating na February 24 and 25 para sa Cohort 13. Ito po ay online learning and certification na tailored sa Philippine Labor Law. Kaya lahat po ng pag-uusapan dito sa compensation and benefit na ito ay according sa Pilipinas na batas. Kaya mga ka-HR, join na po kayo and avail discount. Just use the HR Calabarzon tag. Siyempre po, gusto rin namin pasalamat sa PC Work. Ito po ang from the start. Hindi po tayo binitawan ng PC Work. Talaga naman pong lagi nila tayo sinusuportahan every now and then. Kaya kung may kailangan po tayo mga gadgets, computer, laptop, desktop, mga LAN, please do contact their head office at 384 E. Rodriguez Senior Avenue, Barangay Immaculate Concepcion, Cubao, Quezon City. Please do screenshot their landline number at ang email nila. Marami po silang branches all over NCR. And of course, we would like to thank Wellness, Health, and Total Rewards, your insurance consultant. Siyempre, 2023 na. Renewhan na ngayon ng mga HMO, mga insurance na para sa ating mga empleyado. For quotation requests and product presentation and inquiries, you may contact their employee benefit consultant at email address at ev@wellnesshealthtotalrewards.com. You could also call Mr. Dion Jeffrey Flores, their CEO, at 0968-853-5003. You could also call Mr. Raymond Astria, their employee benefit consultant, at 0917-173-0111. Of course, syempre 2023 na, hindi lang mga anak natin sa trabaho ang ating iniintindi. Iniintindi natin ang ating mga dalaginding at dalagita. Ang Butterfly Kiddie Salon po ay nag-offer ng hair and makeup, nail art, face painting, balloon artwork, 3D, glitter tattoo, and many more. So please get your girls ready for a limited makeover. Contact Miss Ludilyn Estrella at 0936-628-6487. Ayan. This afternoon, talaga namang nagkaroon ako ng parang nung nakita ko yung post ni Sir, that he is giving some PowerPoint presentation sa mga ka-HR natin for a minimal fee. Hindi ko lang po alam kung magkano. I actually messaged him. Sabi ko, Sir, is it possible you could do the online free learning for mga HR? At talaga namang hindi naman niya po ako hinindian. Kaya let's all, pakilala ko na sa inyo ang ating speaker this afternoon para sa how to facilitate the corporate strategic planning. Mr. Jun Aspacio is a senior level manager with more than 26 years. Huwag na po nating itanong kung ilang taon siya. At hands-on po siya sa experience in management and human resource. Proven ability to work in a fast-paced environment with top management executive in making HR a business and strategic partner in achieving the overall business operating goals, experience in full spectrum of HR management, operation and delivery of results. His HR facet expertise are performance management system, organizational development, job evaluation, compensation and benefits design and administration, talent management, training and development, staffing requirement, HR policy design, recruitment and onboarding, employee and labor legislation, career development, CBA negotiation, ISO compliance, employee relation, and employee engagement. Kaya guys, itong ating speaker this afternoon, ating mentor ngayon, ay isa sa mga mentor and speaker din, syempre, ng Philippine HR Group. Kaya guys, let's all welcome Mr. Jun Aspacio. Hi, Sir Jun.
Hi, thank you very much, Ma'am Neds. So I'm on na?
Yes, sir, you are.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to greet all the participants. Okay, now you can see me. Yung picture po doon sa flyer ni Ma'am Neddy, I really can't remember anymore when was that taken. Kaya nung makita ko nung inilabas ni Ma'am Neddy, talaga natawa ako. Sabi ko, wow, nabawasan ng age ko. Yung sinabi mo, Ma'am Neddy, don't ask for my age anymore. My dear friends, I retired at age 60. And that was already 10 years ago.
Ay.
Okay, so you know how to add. Oh, you know how to add. Okay. Now, the topic given to me by Ma'am Neds is how to facilitate the corporate strategic planning. This is one of the PowerPoint presentations that I'm really offering. My intention here, my dear friends, that I'm getting old and I'm already retired from active service, although I am a consultant of several companies. So I decided to upgrade all my PowerPoint presentations and share it. Of course, siyempre, kailangan natin ng konting, you know what I mean. Okay. Now, rest be assured that all those PowerPoint presentations that I'm offering for sale, those are product of my hands-on experience as far as HR is concerned. Now, this PowerPoint presentation is not really intended as an educational tool of HR, but rather this is intended for the HR person to be guided on should he ever wish to facilitate the corporate strategic planning. Most of the time, my dear friends, corporate strategic planning is done by a consultant. But then I believe that that an HR practitioner being having occupied or occupying a very vital position in the organization can actually do the strategic planning, because we are in the middle. We are in constant contact with the people up there in the management. And of course, we are so much familiar with what is happening at the bottom. So in other words, we can connect the top and the bottom. And by having that kind of opportunity to understand the top and the bottom, we can, as HR practitioners, can actually do strategic planning. Now, let me read some quotes. A vision without strategy remains an illusion. Well, I don't know if you agree with me on that, no? And then strategy is about setting ourselves apart from competition. It's not a matter of being better. It's a matter of doing a different thing from what the rest are doing. Now, without strategy, execution is aimless. Without execution, strategy is useless. So in other words, my dear friends, do we do whatever else is doing? Okay. Like for example, my experience in HR is in the hospital setting. Now, practically every hospital is doing curative procedure to patients. So in other words, we're not different from the rest. But the point is, you have to spend less from the rest. In other words, the strategic planning, my dear friends, is intended actually to increase the income of the company. That's all. That is what is important for strategic planning, to increase the income. So what is a strategy? Well, strategy is none other than a blueprint of action. It's a blueprint of action where you put everything there, whatever you want to do. And normally, strategic planning is done, say, for example, if your organization is using from January or the year, the 12 months of a year, from January to December, the very best time for you to prepare for your strategic planning is around probably December or even November. Okay, so that by next year, everything will be in operation. It will be already in the functional level. Okay, now the strategic planning produces several documents. One, of course, is the strategy plan. Okay, we will discuss all those things. And the other one is, of course, the balance scorecard. Okay, these are the two very, very important documents that can be produced out of strategic planning. In other words, my dear friends, strategic planning is easy to do. But the most difficult part of strategic planning, especially if you are the facilitator, is how to draw out the best ideas from the participants. Okay, from the participants, and how you're going to connect the past. Say, for example, to 2022. How you're going to connect 2022 with what you're going to do with 2023, 2024, or 2025. Normally, strategic plan is not done only for 1 year, but rather it can be done for a 3-year period. I'm not advising for a 5-year period because there are some plans, there are some targets, KPIs, KPIs in strategy map that cannot be done in 1 year. Okay, cannot be done in 1 year. So let's move on. Ma'am Neds, if they have any question, I can be interrupted. I don't mind. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes. In my presentation, I'm going to use the model of Kaplan and Norton. Kaplan and Norton. The Kaplan and Norton model uses 4 perspectives. Now, don't be confused with the word perspective. Simply stated, sa Tagalog, itong perspektibo na to, ito yung mga areas na titingnan ninyo habang ginagawa ninyo ang strategic planning. Okay? Kasama na po dyan ng nasa ibaba hanggang papunta sa itaas. 4 lamang naman po yun, which you will find out later. What are those things? Okay? And then, this strategy map is none other than a guide or a reference material. Okay? Kung alam mo kung saan kayo pupunta. The most important thing in business operation is you should be able to see if there are any deviations. Like for example, when we had our ISO certifications, meron mga deviations yon. In other words, the moment you see a deviation, you nip it in the bud. And how do you know that there are deviations in your plan? Okay? By looking at the balance scorecard. Because the balance scorecard is more comprehensive than the strategy map. The strategy map is a very basic. It's a basic map. It's really a map because it guides you. But then the contents of the strategy map are mapped out in the balance scorecard, which you will find out later. Okay. So, in other words, the BSC is where you will find the key result areas and of course, the KPIs, the key performance indicators. Okay? When you plan to do a strategic planning, you try first to open up the minds of the big bosses. I'm sure as an HR head, you are a member of the management team. Now, normally, if it is not initiated, if the strategic planning is not initiated by your big bosses, you as an HR practitioner, because you are actually the stethoscope of the company, you can always diagnose, you can feel what is happening in the company. You have to remember that HR now is not just a pen and paper function, but rather there are other very important functions of HR. It has already metamorphosed into something like, for example, you're a business partner. And at the same time, you're the steward of resources, most especially if your company is organized or unionized, and you are appointed as the chairman of the management panel. You should really know the resources of the company, because what can you offer to the union if you don't know the resources of the company? So in other words, the idea of strategic planning can come from you as an HR head. Normally, many managers don't go into that. But then if it is initiated by the management, it would be better, mas madali. Okay. Now, this presentation of mine is as a subset intended for you to equip yourself with the necessary skills, with the necessary knowledge on how to facilitate the strategic planning. Mga kaibigan, pag kumuha ka sa labas ng isang strategic planning facilitator, napakamahal po nito. Strategic planning is not an ordinary HR function. This is a high-level HR function. Okay. Now, ito na po yung mga pamamaraan ng strategic planning. Nariyan na yung preparing. Okay, nariyan na yung preparing. Para akong humihina. Okay, preparing and then analyzing. Yung analyzing, you're going to analyze the internal and the external conditions. And then imagine what will happen in the future. And then clarifying all those strategies or those KPIs that you have already indicated. And then you plan out as indicated in the balance scorecard. And then, of course, the most difficult thing is the execution. Okay, let me continue. Ganito po ang itsura ng strategy map. If you will notice, meron po dyan na ito na yun, learning and growth perspective. Look at the bottom. And then internal perspective, and then customer perspective, and the financial perspective. Now, let me caution you, when you plan, when you are in the process of planning your strategy, you always start from the top, from the financial perspective. In other words, targetin nyo na kaagad, ano ba ang gusto nyo mangyari sa company? Okay, now, my dear friends, hindi na kailangan magkaroon pa ng mga symptoms ang company para mag-strategic planning. No. I would suggest that strategic planning is really very, very important. Kasi nga, para walang wastage sa company. And at the same time, everybody is guided on what to do for the 12-month period. So always start from the financial perspective. Ilagay nyo na kaagad dyan kung ano ang target ninyo. Like for example, if you want to increase sales so that you can increase profit. And at the same time, yung mga stockholders ninyo, gaganda ang kanilang return on investment. Okay. But then, when you execute the strategy map and the balance scorecard, you have to start from the learning and growth perspective. Pataas ka hanggang sa internal, and then customer perspective, and then financial. Let me go over what are those things that you should learn about learning and growth. How can business satisfy the customer? And how are you going to attract the customers to patronize your services or product? If your people are not prepared to come up with the best service, to come up with the best product. Now, it's not only in other words, learning and growth is all about training. It's all about preparing your people for the eventual work. Kaya nga meron din tayong tinatawag na performance management system. And it's really very important in performance management system. I would suggest, now should you go into strategic planning, do first the performance management system. Kasi doon talaga lalabas yun kung ano ang trabaho ng bawat isa. Okay, and then of course, where will you see these specific tasks of your employees? You have to write first a very clear job description. Now, but before you can write a very good job description, you must have first your competency list, your competency mapping. In other words, my dear friends, hindi po ito isolated. The strategic planning is not an isolated project of HR. In other words, you should be able to have planted already the pre-planning requirements of strategic plan. Okay, so from learning, this is all about people. This is about the preparedness of your personnel. Are they prepared to do those things? But then that's only 50% of your preparation. What about your system? So we go now to internal perspective. What about your processes? Tama ba yung mga processes ninyo? Can people, are your processes intended, are your processes aligned so that there won't be any losses? There won't be any repetition of job. Okay, so in other words, internal business perspective and the learning and growth perspective, they go side by side. Etong nasa ibaba, tao. Yung nasa gitna, ito na yung kumpanya. Tama ba ang mga procedure ninyo sa loob ng kumpanya? Pagsamahin mo, you combine the positive effects of a very good internal business perspective and talented and creative people. I don't see any reason why you cannot satisfy your customer. And the moment a customer or your customers are satisfied, they will patronize your product or they will patronize your services. And naturally, money will come in. Diyan na papasok ngayon ang financial perspective. So I repeat, my dear friends, when you prepare the strategic, when you do the strategic planning, always start from the top. You go down. But then when it comes to execution, you start from the bottom, you go up until you reach yung iyong financial perspective. Okay. Now, ito naman po ang itsura ng balance scorecard. The balance scorecard is no different actually from the strategic plan. Itong mga bilog na ito sa strategic plan, ayan, yung mga bilog na yan, ano? Ito po yung mga objectives, mga KRAs yan, mga KRAs. Wala pang KPI ho dyan. These objectives or KRA must be reflected in the balance scorecard. And then as I've said, the balance scorecard is more comprehensive than strategic map. So makikita mo dito, ano yung mga measure niya? How are you going to measure now? Yung KRA mo. And then what is your target? And then of course, what are you supposed to do? Let me repeat. When you start working on the balance scorecard, all those things that appeared on the strategic map, place it here on the left side. And then next column, how are you going to measure those things? Okay? And then if you're going to measure it, of course, alam nyo naman yung SMART. Okay? And then pagkatapos, ilalagay mo yung target mo rito. Now, as far as putting your targets, be modest in putting your targets, my dear friends. Huwag ka masyadong, the balance scorecard and the strategy map is not intended to impress your boss. Okay. This is not intended to impress the boss. This must be realistic. In other words, within the capability of the company and the people to achieve the balance. What are those things written in the balance scorecard? And then pagkatapos, ilalagay nyo rito, what are the initiatives? In other words, what are you supposed to do in order to achieve your target and how you're going to measure it. And then of course, yung last part niyan, sino ang responsible person? Okay. Since ang target natin is the financial, it's not only the accounting, my dear friends. Lahat yan. Even HR. HR is not an income generating department. We in the HR we spend the money of the company via salary. Remember, my dear friends, ang salary hindi bumababa po yan. Tumataas po yan. Okay. So in other words, we spend the money of the company. Pero merong ROI yan. Ano ang kapalit ng when we give salary to the employees? Of course, there's services. And what kind of services? Hindi yung hit and miss service. Kasi pagka hit and miss service yan, that will result to losses. So mawawalan ka ng profit doon. So ito po ang balance scorecard. Okay? Now, before actual planning workshop, first try to sell the idea, especially to the management. Not only to the management, but to the so-called functional heads. Now, when I say functional heads, I'm referring to the heads of the department. My dear friends, if strategic planning is initiated by the HR is not the sole owner of that strategy. HR is not the sole owner of that particular project. You have to collaborate with everybody, especially, as I've said, the functional. Kasi they are the one in direct contact with their employees, not the HR. Kaya nga after producing the strategic map, the strategy map, and the balance scorecard, ang mangyayari po niyan, each department will have their own balance scorecard. Will have their own balance scorecard. In other words, their own departmental balance scorecard must be attuned to the objectives of their particular department. Say for example, if you are the HR, pwede mong ilagay doon, ano ang ROI mo doon sa recruitment? Okay? How much do you spend per recruited employee, per hiree? And how much is your ROI per newly hired employee? Napakagandang ilagay nyo yun sa inyong balance scorecard. Okay. And then, of course, having the outline of the strategic planning, you sell the idea. You present it to the top management and to the functional heads. In other words, without getting the nod of the big boss and also the functional heads, wala pong mangyayari dyan sa strategic planning. Magpapagod lamang po kayo. Because as I've said, strategic planning is not the sole function of HR. It is everybody's function. Now, after maaprubahan, humingi kayo ng memo ngayon sa top management, kay big boss, and then roll it out. And then you have to inform every individual, every employee in the company that you are going into the implementation of your balance scorecard. You need to explain all these things to them, my dear friends. Okay. Now, before the planning workshop, before the strategic planning, create first yung committee, meaning who will be the members, who will attend the strategic planning. Okay. For how long can you do it? I think I have done it for 1 day. Pero inaabot kami ng gabi. Pero before the actual planning, strategic planning, magbigay na ako ng I gave them assignments so that pagdating doon sa venue, they have already with them all the data. Okay, like for example, eto, megatrends. When we speak of megatrends, these are the things that's happening outside of the company. This is external, my dear friends. Okay, this is external. Ang dami mga, like for example, tingnan nyo ngayon sa Pilipinas, ang taas ng presyo ng mga commodities. Anong madalas sabihin nila? Sabihin nila kasi may gera sa Ukraine. Ano kinalaman ko sa Ukraine? Ang layo-layo na Ukraine. Okay. But that is an example of a mega trend. Now, you have to understand also the market. Balik tayo sa sibuyas. Bakit ang sibuyas ang mahal? Ano ba nangyayari sa market? Okay. Baka naman nagkakabulahan na tayo sa mga market. Can you imagine? Sabi ko nga kay Ma'am Neddy kanina, kapatid ng misis ko, taga Singapore, nagbakasyon, narito ngayon sa Pilipinas. pag-uwi ng Pilipinas, nagdala ng sibuyas. Tinanong ko, magkano bili mo ng sibuyas sa Singapore? 125 pesos. Hindi po Singaporean dollar, 125 pesos. Can you imagine? Hindi naman tinanim yon ng mga Singaporeans ang sibuyas. They will not waste their land planting sibuyas. But if they can sell it at 125, yung sibuyas sa Pilipinas ay imported din. Pero bakit umaabot ng 500 to 700 pesos? That is, yan po ang mga magic. Yan ang magic na nangyari sa market natin ngayon. Okay. Kapareho na lamang ng itlog. Pati itlog, my goodness. Iba ang nangyayari sa itlog. Kaya kami mga lalaki, sabi ko kay Ma'am Neddy, swerte kami. And then, what about the trends in the industry? Ano ba nangyayari sa inyong industriya? If you are the BPO, napakabilis, napakalakas ng competition sa BPO. If you are in the manufacturing, there are so many substitute products. Okay? If you are in the hospital, ang daming substitute dyan. At ang laki ng problema ng mga ospital ngayon, mga kaibigan. Kaya huwag kayo masyadong magkakasakit. Baka wala pong mag-alaga nurses sa inyo. Naroon lahat sila sa abroad. And then you have to identify also the competition. What is happening now? Ano yung competition na nangyayari? Okay, merong mga iba dyan talagang dumadive sa mga presyo para makakuha lamang ng kanilang mga customers. So now, what I'm trying to say, my dear friends, when you prepare for strategic planning, you ask the participants to understand the external developments, because definitely these external developments will impact on the company. And then pagkatapos niyan, hindi lang external, but also the internal. Okay, mamaya i-discuss ko kung ano yung mga internal things that you have to review during your strategic planning. And then pagkatapos ma-aprobahan ng strategic plan workshop, you ask for the budget. Okay, hindi tatakbo ang strat plan kung walang budget. Siyempre, habang kayo ay nagtatrabaho, nariyan na yung kakain kayo. And I would suggest, don't do it inside your company. Do it outside. Para walang makakatakas. And then, kung meron kayong jammer sa cellphone, i-jam nyo mga cellphone nila. And then, of course, you have to orient the workshop team. Okay? And then, of course, your material preparation. If you are going to do, you will be the one to do the strategic planning, you also come up with your team. Kasi pagkadating mo na doon sa strategic planning, you don't want to be bothered by those small things like, for example, nasa yung mga materials na yan, etc., etc. Okay, so in other words, once you reach the workshop venue, everything is already prepared. And then, of course, you as a facilitator, you have to be prepared. You have to be 110% very sharp. Okay. The sharpness of your mind works a lot when you do the facilitation of strategic planning. And then roll out the schedule. Okay. And then, of course, again, you orient the members before you go into actual planning. And then pagkatapos niyan, after, prepare all the materials needed for the workshop. Okay. Now, the very first thing that you will do during the strategic planning workshop is to understand your company. In other words, do the internal analysis first, internal diagnosis. And you can do that by brainstorming. Okay, so kumisa sa brainstorming, medyo madugo. Maglabas na rin kayo ng mga rules on what are the rules to be observed during brainstorming, lalo na pagka nariyan. Let's go back to the team. Yung team na isasama ninyo sa planning workshop, nariyan ang mga nasa itaas, the management. Because they'll be the one to make the decision. Nariyan yung functional heads. At nariyan din yung mga rank and file. Pwede ka magsama ng rank and file. Ang isama mo sa rank and file, yung pinakamakulit, yung maraming tanong. Okay. Yung maraming tanong na tama ang tinatanong, hindi lang magtatanong para manggulo. Bakit kailangan? So that you have their three groups, the top, the middle, and those at the bottom. So in other words, you get to have their three perspectives, three viewpoints. Tatlo yun. Pagsama-samahin nyo ngayon. can you imagine those three people with different interests magsasama at magbe-brainstorm? Now, you have to be very, very worried kung ano nangyayari sa brainstorming. One cardinal rule in brainstorming, walang magsasabi na mali ang sinabi niya. Accept everything, and then later on, you try to ferret out those things that are not really material to the topic that you are brainstorming. Okay. Ito po yung mga guidelines. Now, ito yung sinabi ko kanina. You need the help of the cross-functional team. Ito yung sinasabi ng top management, middle management, and people at the bottom. Okay. And then, after analyzing the external conditions, go into the internal conditions. What are some of the areas that you have to review? First, the leadership. Was there a change in the company structural organization? Natural, pag kami nagbago ang structural organization, may pagbabago din ang leadership. And it is really very important because a leader will always call the shots in your company. So look at that. Tingnan nyo kung ano naging impact nun. And then what about yung redirection of your products and services? Did you introduce another service? Did you introduce another product? Or did you phase out any of those products? And what are the effects of the phasing out then and the reintroduction or introduction of another product? Now, ito po ay hindi madaling gawin. And then of course, in the planning workshop, kasama nyo dyan ang controller, kasama nyo dyan ang big boss sa accounting because alam niya kung ano ang nangyayari sa kumpanya, alam niya ang kaperahan ng pera. And then as the HR, you are in charge of the manpower. And then of course, the functional heads, they're the one in charge of the processes. Are there issues to be resolved in the company? What about interpersonal relationship issues? Can that be resolved by strategic planning? Yes. Doon pa lamang sa brainstorming, kayang-kaya mo nang i-resolve. Remember, my dear friends, most of those conflicts are on the top, nasa itaas, wala doon sa ibaba. Yung conflict sa ibaba, ano lamang yan, mga petty-petty lamang yan, pag-uusapan na matino yan. Pero kung hindi magkasundo yung mga director, vice president, and of course the president, medyo malaki ang problema mo. Okay. Now also, you have to look into the type of organization you have. Is it stock profit, non-stock? Have a second look at the organizational chart. Now, make a decision during that time. Are you going to revise or retain all those things? And then, of course, very, very important. If ever you have already your VMB, vision, mission, values, review them. Balay mo, baka itong vision ninyo, matagal nang nagawa niya, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Now, this past 2.5 years, ang laki ng mga pinagbabago. So you have to revisit the vision. Now, if there is a need to change your vision, go ahead. Okay, hindi naman ho permanente ang vision. Actually, vision ay nagbabago yan. It should be revisited actually every 2 years or 3 years. And then, of course, the moment you change your vision, you have to change also your mission. And what are these missions of the company? The mission actually are actually the things that you are supposed to do in order to achieve your vision. And then what about values? Yeah, values, this is the epoxy of the company. In other words, people in the company, they all come from different walks of life. Okay. The only way by which you can solidify them is through your values. Okay. These must be shared values. Kaya it's really very, very important for HR. At the onset, the moment a new employee is already hired, you have to onboard that particular employee. When I was still in the active duty, I am the one personally doing the company orientation. Okay, so that iisa lamang ang interpretation ng aming company orientation. Hindi pa iba-iba. In other words, I really take time out to do it personally, my dear friends. Okay, especially on the values. Okay, bakit vision, mission, and values? Because everything that you will do during the strategic planning must be attuned or aligned to your vision, must be also attuned to your mission, and of course, it must be attuned to your values. Okay, lahat po yan. Kaya as a facilitator of strategic planning, every time you notice that there is already deviation from the vision, mission, and values of the company, call their attention right away. Okay, and then try to redirect their ideas or whatever things that they are saying so that they can be incorporated, meaning they can be placed inside the realm of your company vision, mission, and values. Okay, nabanggit ko na ang political. Okay, lalong-lalo na this past 2.5 years, ang daming mga pagbabago, mga kaibigan. Okay, very important ngayon, no? Do you notice that today, it's so difficult to hire people? Ang hirap maghanap ng talent ngayon. At ang bilis nila mag-resign. Okay, hindi pa natatapos sa 6 months, nagpaplano na mag-resign. And then of course, political changes. 6 months pa lamang si BBM. Hindi pa natin alam kung anong mangyayari. Ang customer, napaka-volatile ng customer. Paiba-iba ho yung mga gusto niyan. Ang kalaban natin dyan si Shopee at saka si Lazada. Okay. So tingnan natin kung ano ang mangyayari doon. The external conditions really impact on the internal. And my dear friends, you can control what is happening internally, but you cannot control what is happening externally. Kaya mas mahirap ang mga external conditions affecting our company. And that alone will explain, that alone will rationalize why you need strategic strategy map in your balance scorecard. Okay. Now, when you do the company diagnosis, there are several tools that you have to use. Ito yung walang kamatayang SWOT. Strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Pay attention on your strength. Okay, huwag masyadong mayabang na maglabas ka ng mga bagay-bagay na hindi naman totoo. Pay attention on your strength and your opportunities. Ito, ganun din. Tingnan ninyo how are you going to eliminate your weaknesses. And then of course, threats coming from the outside. So in other words, my dear friends, what you see here, strength is internal, opportunities is both internal and external, weaknesses is internal, threats is also, I would say, dati ang tingin ko sa threat is external, pero internal na rin po ito eh. Ano yung mga threats na sinasabi kong internal? As I've said ngayon mga kaibigan, ang bilis mag-resign ng mga tao ngayon. Ang bilis po mag-resign. My dear friends, recruitment is an expense. Okay. Can you imagine, hindi, nababasa ko sa mga social media, hindi pa na 3 months. Magre-resign na kasi biglang na-offer siya sa ibang company. Siya mismo, yung empleyado, nakikita niya opportunities. Okay. Pero tayo, dapat makita natin itong opportunities na ito. And then, ito po yung isa pang presentation ng SWOT. Okay. Now, pagdating sa SWOT, mga kaibigan, try to encourage the participants to be realistic. Marami dyan, medyo mahihiya magsabi ng weakness nila. Okay, especially when it comes to interpersonal relationship. Marami naman dito sa strength, magyayabang sila. Okay. And then, ito, bigyan nyo na attention yan, yung dalawang yan. And try to, modify yung mga sinasabi mo. Is it really the truth? Pero don't tell them na hindi tama. Dahil sinabi natin, wala munang, don't make judgment during brainstorming proper. After the brainstorming, you can filter out those things that are not true and you will not benefit from those things. Okay. Now, another tool that you can use during brainstorming is Porter's 5 forces. It's no different actually from a SWOT. Nadagdagan lamang ng isa. Ito yung threat of new entrants. Okay. When we say new entrants, yung mga bagong pasok na company ngayon. Okay. And then threat of substitute. Tingnan ninyo, threat of substitute. Balik tayo sa sibuyas. Gusto kong talakayin yung sibuyas na yan eh. Minsan bumili ko ng shawarma. Sabi ko doon sa nagtitinda, ma'am, dagdagan nyo naman ng sibuyas. Sir, wala ho tayong sibuyas. Saan ka nakakita ng shawarma na walang sibuyas? Okay, minsan din, binala ko kasi paborito ko yung onion rings, yung sibuyas na puti. Ano yung substitute sa sibuyas na puti tsaka pula? Lasuna. Subukan mo kayo magluto ng lasuna at gagawin mong onion rings. Yan, magagawa mo. Pero ang lalabas, finger onion rings. Yung magkakasalamang sa daliri mo. And then of course, yan, supplier. The bargaining power of the supplier. And then of course, hindi lamang bargaining power ito, the buying capacity of the customers. Ito yung mga pag-aaralan natin ngayon. And then of course, the competition coming. You can use the SWOT, you can use the Porter's 5 forces during your brainstorming. My dear friends, that initial thing that you should do, brainstorming, is really very important because that will open the minds of practically everyone. Okay. Diyan mabubuksan ang isipan ng bawat isa. In other words, the brainstorming session is the pangiliti sa pag-iisip ng mga participants. Now, not satisfied with Porter's 5 forces, you can use si PESLE. Hindi po peste, ha? Hindi peste, PESLE. PESLE stands for political, economic, social, technological. Ito, napakabigat ng epekto ng technological. And then, of course, the legal aspect. The legal aspect of your business. And then, of course, the environmental. Anyway, all these things are almost self-explanatory. All you have to do is just explore on all those things during the brainstorming. I would say, lahat importante ito sa akin eh. Political, legal, technological, the economic condition, the social, and then the environment. Wala kang tulak kabigin po dito sa paggamit ng PESLE. Halos lahat po yan ay napaka-importante. Now, should you decide to change your vision, mission, and values, you can use this part. In other words, during the planning session, isulat nyo na po kung ano yung vision, mission, and values ninyo. And then, i-post ninyo sa gilid ng room so that every time there is deviation from the vision, mission, and values, call their attention to Rumo. Okay, we have a new vision, we have a new mission, and we have a new values. Okay, let us redirect those things para pasok sila doon sa ginagawa natin. My dear friends, I don't know if your company has this, VMB, no? This one is really, to me, personally, as an HR practitioner, I consider this to be very, very important. Kasi the moment na meron ako nakitang deviation, all I have to do is just mention the values. Wala na akong pag-uusapan doon. Wala nang pag-uusapan doon yun. Okay. And besides, as an HR, I'm not the one enforcing the values. This is what the company has decided. Okay. So in other words, my dear friends, the vision, mission, and values, you have to concretize it. Don't just display it in the conspicuous places or corners of the company, but you have to have specific behavioral indicators to see whether everyone is following the vision, the mission, and the values. Okay. So let's go now to the strategic map. Makikita niyo yung sample dito po, nababasahin ko. Nakalagay, improve the cost, structure, increase asset utilization. Okay? Kasi ang daming mga asset na bibili, kung minsan hindi naman nagagamit. Nasisira pa at hindi na may maintain. Kaya tingnan niyo mo yung UPS ng Kaap. Meron silang 2 UPS yung backup nila, pero parehong nasira. So ano nangyari? I think around 65,000 passengers were affected. Okay, tapos nanghihingi pa ng budget ngayon. In other words, sinabi nila meron naman silang preventive maintenance, pero can you imagine, 2 backup ang nasira. So in other words, bibili sila ng another backup to back up the backup. Can you imagine? Saan ka nakakita ng ganyan? And then, of course, increase the revenue, increase profit. Okay. So, ito po. There are arrows. Ibig sabihin po niyan, itong, kunyari, itong, Ma'am Neddy, can you see yung aking cursor?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Itong arrow na to, it means, kunyari, yung quality na yan, or the rest, everything here, in the customer perspective, will lead to this. Okay, will lead to that. And then pagkatapos, eto namang KRA na to will lead to this. Everything will lead to that. O kaya naman, pwede nyo rin lagyan ng arrow dito. If one will lead to the other. What I'm trying to say, my dear friends, every KRA that you put in any of the perspectives, they must be complementary to each other. One should lead the other. Huwag kang maglalagay dito ng contradictory. Magiging malabo yan. No? Magiging bulang lang ang iyong financial perspective. Basta ito po ay lahat sa kaperahan. Okay. Dito naman sa customer perspective. Okay. Kunyari, product ang inyo. Well, you have to look into the pricing. And then, of course, yung quality. Okay, kaya tingnan nyo, mahal ang sibuyas dahil kukunti daw ang production. Now, aside from quality, availability, bakit wala yata rito quality ba to? Yeah, quality. Ito yung quantity naman ngayon, availability. And then selection of the product, the functionalities. In other words, think now of what do customers prefer. Okay. Ano ba ang preference ng mga customer as far as that particular product that you are producing? Or what are the preferences of your customers as far as your services are concerned? So in other words, my dear friends, dapat magkaroon ka din ng study pagdating sa inyong mga customers. You should also come up with some sort of a survey kung ano yung gusto ng mga customer. Kaya nga tingnan nyo, sa service companies, meron silang customer satisfaction survey. Okay. Ito naman, internal perspective. Itong internal perspective na to, ito yung mga processes ninyo lahat. Okay. Ito yung mga processes that will satisfy the customer. And who are the doers of the internal perspective? Mga tao. But how can they improve your internal business processes if the people are not prepared? You really have to train them. Okay, train them. You train them per job title or per family of job titles para sigurado na magagawa nila ang gusto nilang gawin pagdating dito sa internal business process. Kung minsan, like for example, when I was still the HR director of Lasal, yung hospital sa Dasmariñas, Cavite, the very first company workshop that I did was flow charting. Kasi nung pinag-aaralan ko din yung operation ng hospital, ako mismo naliligaw. Because when I entered that particular job, my dear friends, nobody oriented me. Wala pong nag-orient sa akin. And worst, from the academe, galing po ako sa academe, ano? Teacher po ako and administrator din ng De La Salle Subel. Pagdating ko ng ospital ng Lasal, wala po akong kaalam-alam. I will really admit to you, my dear friends, that I have zero knowledge of HR. Ang akala ko sa HR ay hotel and restaurant. At yung M, management. So in other words, kinapa ko. And I am not ashamed to tell you, my dear friends, that it took me 3 years to really understand HR. At inubos ko lahat ng seminar na inoffer ng UP SolAir. And that's also where I got my certificate on IR HR. So madali po gawin ang strategy map. But then as a facilitator, see to it na lahat sila ay aligned to one another. I would suggest, wag niyo masyadong damihan yan, baka hindi niyo ma-accomplish, ano? And towards the end, when you evaluate your plans, babagsak kayo. In other words, start first with the simplest. Yung talaga sa tingin niyo attainable. Pero kung ginagawa niyo na, itaas niyo ang level. At yung level na yon will be indicated in the balance scorecard. Okay. And then of course, alam nyo kung ano ang mga preferences ng mga customer. Alam nyo rin kung anong flow, yung problem ninyo sa inyong internal business perspective, yung internal business process ninyo. And then of course, HR and functional heads, you have to sit down together and identify what are the weak points of your employees. Okay, ito na yung, like for example, if you have a yearly performance evaluation of your people, ang dapat na trabaho ng HR pagkatapos ng individual performance evaluation, submit all performance evaluation and then do the item analysis. If you have around 25 items in your performance evaluation, do the item analysis. When I say item analysis, i-total nyo lahat yung mga rating points na inilagay doon. And then from there, you can already see the weak points of your employees. And then from there, together with the functional head, you can now design a training program, whether internal or external. But don't forget, my dear friends, pagdating sa learning and growth perspective, do not forget yung mga behavioral aspect. Don't forget behavioral aspect, like for example, counseling and also coaching and mentoring. You really have to train your functional heads to do all those things. In other words, my dear friends, it's not easy to be in the HR. Okay? And most of all, HR, hindi po ako marunong magmajong. Pero sa tingin ko, kung ikaw nagmamajong, kayang-kaya mong salatin ang mga pitsa ng majong. Pero as an HR, kayang-kaya mong salatin ang mga tao by simply talking to them. Say for example, in 30 minutes, if you are a very discriminating person, you can actually see kung ano ang problema ng mga tao. At saka pagka may dumating sa opisina ninyo, my dear friends, entertain them all. In other words, kung anong ginagawa mo, stop it and then talk to the employee. Itong mga empleyado na to, marami sa kanila mga KSP yan. Kulang sa pansin yan. Kailangan nila talagang, probably they need somebody where they can blurt out yung mga hinanakit nila sa trabaho, sa buhay nila. Pakinggan mo lahat yun. Because by doing that, you will have a good understanding of your workforce. Very, very important to an HR head ng isang organization. Okay. Now, also you have to discuss. Ito bang ginagawa niyong strategy map at saka balance scorecard? Of course, it is always corporate. Okay, I will not advise na you do a departmental strategic planning. Kasi walang mangyayari diyan. Hindi synchronized ang strat plan, balance scorecard ng bawat isang department. There must be a focal point where you're going to align your departmental strat plan. Kaya come up first with the corporate, and then after doing the corporate strategy map and the balance scorecard, filter it down to each department. Gagawa din sila ng sarili nila ngayong strategy map and the balance scorecard. Discuss also for how long. Okay? Kaya lalabas doon sa inyong balance scorecard. Lalabas doon kung good for 1 year, good for 2 years. In other words, per KRA and KPI, lagyan nyo ng date. Lagyan nyo ng duration. Kung hanggang kailan nila ma-achieve yung that particular KPI or project. Kaya also indicate there the review date. Now, you have to come up also with a mechanism who will review those things, who will review what you have indicated in your balance scorecard. Okay? Kaya kailangan nyo lang, just a small committee, my dear friends. The members of that small committee must be must have critical eyes. Okay. The moment you're done with your corporate strategy map and balance scorecard, and the department strategy map and balance scorecard have been done, it's now the responsibility of the head of that department. Okay, that is already their responsibility. Merong question na pumasok lang sa isipan ko. Yung bang attainment of those KPIs and KRAs, could they be included in the performance evaluation of the heads? I think yes. Kailangan yun. Kasi pinaka-importante ng trabaho ng head, siya ang timon. Siya ang nagbibigay ng direction sa kanilang departamento. That is his team. In other words, pag hindi nag-perform ang team niya, no head should come up with an accusing finger. No, that is his command responsibility. And I think the HR should plant that in the minds of many of our functional heads, that there is such a thing as command responsibility. Okay. So ito po yung mga details ng strategy map. So nakalagay ho dito sa mga notes, the two boxes serve as objectives of the financial side. Increase revenue, maximize the shareholders' values. The two objectives must be related to one another, at least to the other, related sila. The arrow shows the expected result on revenue increase. Okay. Wala pa ho itong KPI ha, because this is still the strategy map. And then, ito naman yung sa financial pa rin. Okay. We go now to some other KRAs in the financial side. Pwede yung reduce cost and improve performance, increase the use of assets, and then increase cash flow, maximize use of assets, reduce utilities cost, and increase production. All these things can be considered as financial KRAs. Now, we go to the customer. The same explanation po. Itong mga nakalagay dyan na mga objectives and KRAs, they are all related to one another. Okay. Now, my dear friends, this is very important. When you write those KRAs in the customer perspective, be sure they will lead to the success or attainment of financial. Kasi lalagyan mo rin ng arrow yan eh. If you think that particular customer perspective is not aligned or not or alien to the financial perspective, don't put it there. Dahil magiging baliwala po yun. So in other words, yung nakalagay doon sa financial at yung nakalagay sa customer, dapat yan, meron silang correlation. One will lead to the other. Kasi nga, pag in-implement mo na yan from the bottom, pataas na po yan. Okay, pataas yan. Now, be conservative in establishing KRA in the customer perspective. In the first place, my dear friends, you don't have full control of your customer. Okay, wala kang full control dyan. Kaya be very, very conservative. Be sure these are the results of the next two perspectives. Okay, tingnan niyo ha. Very critical kasi sa akin ang customer perspective. Be sure the KRAs or objectives in the customer perspective will lead to the financial. Okay, attainment of the financial KRAs. But then the customer perspective, while you are doing this and mapping out your KRAs or objectives in the customer, tingnan mo na agad yung dalawa sa ibaba. Tingnan mo na yung internal business process, learning, and development. Okay? Kasi pagka naglagay ka na kaagad dyan sa customer perspective, palpak naman pala yung internal business mo. At yung mga tao, they're not prepared to do that. Magiging baliwala na naman yon. Okay. Kaya nga, in your team, dapat talagang cross-functional siya. Cross-functional. Especially, sabi ko, pinaka-importante po rito yung mga functional heads. Kasi hawak nila ang production, hawak nila ang services, at hawak din nila ang mga tao. Yung HR dapat na rin din. Kasi siya ang merong bird's eye view o kaya helicopter's view of what is happening as far as the personnel, the manpower is concerned. Okay, here are examples of KRAs in the customer perspective. Average time from customer contact to sales. And then average time spent on customer relations. Satisfied customer index, tingnan nyo yung percentage. What about your market share if it is a product? Ilan ang percentage ng market share ninyo? And then the number, ayan, very important, the number of customer complaints. Okay. Tiyak naman, meron kayong tao mag-handle nito, no? Customer relations officer. And then, of course, your number of customers. Hindi lang number of customers. Hanapin nyo rin dito yung repeat customers. In other words, patronage of your customers. Napaka-importante po niyang patronage na. Dahil pag bumaba ang inyong patronage, it's either lumipat na sila ng tirahan o kaya lumipat na ho sila ng ibang, say for example, if it is service, lumipat ho sila ng ibang company. Now, medyo mahirap gawin, annual sales per customer. And then, how many customers ang na-entertain ng isang empleyado? Customers per employee. Like for example, sa hospital, isang nurse ngayon, maabot na one nurse attending to 12 patients. Medyo mataas na po yun. Mataas na po yun. Bakit mataas ngayon? Dahil kukonti ang mga nurses natin. And this is one area that hospital administrators and HR really control. Kasi ang hirap po niyan. Can you imagine one nurse to 10 patients? Aba, pag nagkamali ho yan, pag inabot ng pagod dyan, mas malaki magagastos ng hospital. So these are examples of KRAs in the customer perspective. Now let's proceed to the internal business process perspective. In other words, my dear friends, this is the operational aspect of your organization. The processes inside your company. Okay. May sample dyan, product development and then operation management. Now here, you have to identify what are those areas, what are those processes that need to be improved. You can also look into simplification of processes. Baka naman ang isang bagay inaabot ng how many steps. Ba sayang naman yun. You can combine those different steps. Remember, my dear friends, time is an important element in any production. Time is an important element in managing your business. So in other words, process simplification could be an answer if you're going to go into internal business process. Okay? Napaka-importante po niyaan. Medyo mabigat-bigat ito ng konti. Dahil if you have around say 10 departments or 20 departments in your company, each functional head or head of that particular department should have already studied yung mga processes niya. Ang dami mga processes niyan. Sa accounting pa lang, ang dami mga processes na. HR, ang dami din ng processes niyan. Kaya in other words, ito yung sinabi ko kanina, before the start of the strategic planning, give them assignments para pagdating na doon sa venue, kompleto na ho sila. Okay, kompleto na ng armas ang bawat mga participants. And then, okay, example pa ng business process KRAs. On-time delivery, very important. O on-time services. Alam nyo po ba sa ospital na pag tumagal ng say 5 araw, 6 na araw ang isang pasyente, halos hindi na po kumikita ang ospital doon. Halos tapos na lahat ng mga diagnostics. Nabenta na po lahat. Nabili na po lahat ng mga gamot sa pharmacy. Okay. Kaya ang average sa hospital, bibigyan ako kayo ng tip. Sa hospital, normally 3 days, yung first 3 days ng isang pasyente sa hospital, that's the time kumikita ang hospital. Okay. So kaya nga yan, time is very important. Administrative expense, tingnan ho ninyo yun. Baka naman napakaraming mga papel na kailangan. Like for example na lang, itong ano yung administrative expense. Bigyan ko kayo ng halimbawa. Last year, nag-file ho lahat kami ng national ID. 4 ho kami sa bahay. I think it was last week, na-deliver yung aking ID. Na ID na kumukupas. Alam nyo ba, nakalagay sa magandang envelope. At pagkatapos sa loob nun, meron pang parang explanation doon sa paggamit ng regarding the national ID. Can you imagine the expense, my dear friends? Okay? Doon na lamang sa envelope na napakaganda sa, letter envelope at saka yung papel na ginamit, napakaganda. Okay? Hindi ko naman binasa na yun. So ito yung sinasabi ko, administrative expense. Pagkatapos, yung national ID, kumukupas na. Can you imagine? Kaya ang ginawa ko, nireview ko yung, tininan ko lahat yung aking mga ID itinago. Meron akong isang ID na nakita. I think that ID is my ID in UP Diliman. Okay, UP Diliman. That was mga around 1974. Okay, 1974. Alam nyo ba na walang kakupas-kupas yung ID na yon? At napakamura pa. Pero itong ID ngayon na national ID, my God. Pagbigay pa lang sa akin, kupas na eh. Okay, so ito po yung mga iba't ibang mga KRAs pagdating po dito sa business process. Yan. Punta naman tayo ngayon sa learning and growth perspective. What's the impact of technology? Meron bang kailangan mga skills na pag-aaralan ng mga tao? Very important also is leadership. Okay. Do they really know your functional health? Do they really know how to lead? Do they even know how to communicate with their people? So in other words, my dear friends, to cut the story short, the learning and growth perspective is all about diagnosing whether the manpower, the personnel, is ready to accept the challenge of changes in the internal business process and also in the preferences of the customers, so that if they are prepared, they can contribute now to the improvement of their financial capability of the company. At pag nag-improve ang financial capability of the company, alam nyo na kung anong kasunod. HR, alam mo na kung anong kasunod. Okay. Ayusin mo naman ang sweldo nila. Okay. Ito pa mga ibang example ng learning and growth. Retention of new skills, business performance, training efficiency, your training yung ginagamit ni Kirkpatrick, you really have HR. This is the job of the HR. Try to analyze or to rate how effective is the training. Remember, my dear friends, training is an expense. What about the ROI? What about their attainment of knowledge? And then, of course, the employee engagement. Ang daling sabihin, pero ang hirap gawin. You really have to implement in your company the performance management system. Okay? Now, pagdating doon sa mga KRAs, you can put as many as you want, pero be sure, those KRAs are attainable. There's no rule on that, no? And then after filling up the 4 perspectives KRA, connect them with arrows and see to it that one will lead to the other. Do not crisscross your arrows, just to put arrows. No, my dear friends, you need also a lot of analysis. Which KRA should be connected to another KRA. Okay. Now, in doing the balance scorecard, pay attention on your SMART objectives. How do you measure that? Now, how do you measure? Does it entail another measurement template? Yes, kailangan nyo naman ng panibago yan. HR, you can actually assist the functional heads to come up with their own template on how to measure the accomplishment of those different objectives in their departmental balanced scorecard. And then, very important also kung sino-sino yung mga taong responsible. Okay. So, ito po. Yung KPIs is also another very important thing. This is what actually you're going to evaluate. Have they attained their key performance indicator? Actually, the KPI can also be called OKR. O and KR, objectives and the key results. Okay, very, very important. Sabi ko nga, at the end of the day, this is what you're going to evaluate. Okay, that is why if your strat plan or your balance scorecard is good for 1 year, and then you rolled it out initially for the first year, and then kunyari, January, try to evaluate it already on the 6th month. In other words, first 6 months, para trial period yan. Kasi anyway, your balance scorecard is good for 3 years. From there, after 6 months, you try to evaluate it na. Okay. Now, if there are deviations, what are they? What are you supposed to do? In other words, cure it right away. Nip it in the bud. Huwag mo nang patagalin yun. Okay. Gamutin nyo na kaagad. What happened? So, pwede ka mag-backtrack. What happened? How come? We're not able to attain our OKR. Probably the people are not familiar with what they're doing. The people do not have the necessary competence. Okay, probably they have a different attitude or behavior while in the workplace, or probably the leader does not have the leadership skills to really motivate and push people to work. Okay, or HR, probably yung salary naman nila masyado naman mababa. Okay. Now, things to consider. Agree on the date, evaluating the levels, yung mga targets nila. Is it quarterly? Is it semi-annual? Or is it annual? Create a committee to do this evaluation. HR, hindi mo kaya gawin lahat yan. Create a small committee. Now, functional heads must be ready to initiate remedial measures. Now, if you are the proponent, HR, if you are the one who suggested the strategic map, be sure na all those remedial measures and also those deviations are reported to HR so that at the end of the day, you can make actually a report on what happened. Now, if it involves competence, pasok HR. HR must come in to initiate retooling or upskilling of concerned employees. In other words, HR, meron ka na dyan mga ready resource people to handle those gaps in the competence of your people. Now, make sure in your desire to achieve your KPIs, don't overshoot your budget. Always have in mind the VMB of the company. Gusto mo gusto mong gumanda ang financial standing ng company, doon pa lamang sa inyong strategic plan, do not overshoot your budget. Okay. You want everything to be in the proper perspective. Always bear in mind the vision, mission, and values of the company. Okay. Now, after the strategic planning, you have done the corporate balance, corporate strategy map, and the corporate balance scorecard. Remind everyone that all the documents are confidential and properties of the company. Okay, HR, ikaw ang maglalabas ng memo tungkol dito. This is just a reminder. No? Hindi mo sila tinatakot. This is just a reminder. Remember, those are exclusive properties of the company. Is it possible na bawat department heads may kopya? Well, if you trust them, give them a copy. Okay? Give them a copy. Pero you have to orient them. Sabi mo sa kanila na you cannot reproduce this one. In other words, select those people who have access to the strategy map and the balance scorecard. Now, this is already after the strategic planning. Mag-set kayo ng deadline kung kailan naman matatapos ng bawat department ang kanilang balance scorecard. Okay, yung balance scorecard nila. Who will check the balance scorecard ng ginawa ng company? Well, you have already oriented them on strategic planning. Let that be the responsibility now of the functional heads. Pero kung hindi naman sila sigurado, can they go and see the HR for consultation? By all means, yes. Now, communicate this timeline to everyone. Now, the heads of the department must inform, explain, and mentor their staff. Again, this is a very important step when it comes to the execution of the balance scorecard. Ipapaliwanag ngayon ng mga functional heads kung ano yung mga ginawa during the strategic planning, kung paano gagawin, at lahat ng bagay ipaliwanag nila. Okay. My dear friends, it's really very important that everybody is informed so that you can be assured that they are motivated and they will participate in the execution of your KRAs and KPIs. Okay. Now, just a reminder, planning is only one half of the battle won. Okay. But the real war is on the execution. Don't waste your time doon sa strategic planning. Ensure, be sure na those things are executed. Okay. Pagka merong hindi nagagawa, okay, as I've said, nip it in the bud. And that's it, my dear friends. Okay. Paano nyo ba sasabihin niya sa Korean? Okay, Ma'am Neddy, I'm done.
Ay, sorry. Hi, sir, sorry. Nakamute po pala ako. We are now open for question and answer. Sir, before that, can you please give us yung contact details or information, how could we avail this presentation and other presentation po na ginawa nyo para po sa mga HR practitioner?
Okay. Meron po akong mga iba pang mga PowerPoint sa presentation. Pasensya na po kayo, sabi ko diretso, hindi po ito free. Okay. At yung mga ginawa kong PowerPoint presentations, kasi may tumawad Sabi ko sa kanya, much that I want, pero my mind, ayaw pumayag. Kasi ito pong mga ginawa kong PowerPoint, lahat po yan ay based on my experience, hands-on experience, na-implement ko po yan. At ang laman po lahat noon ay yung aking utak. Okay. Pero napag-uusapan naman po yun. Wala na pa pong problema doon. Ano? Okay. Actually nga, yung una kong ginawa, yung HRM, all the aspects, facets of human resource management. May tumawad Sabi niya, sir, solo parent po ako. Yung isa naman, PWD. So binigyan ko ng discount. Ang isang senior citizen, nagbigay ng discount sa PWD at saka sa isang solo parent. Imagine, kung ako nga, 20% nagbibigay ng discount. All you have to do, my dear friends, is access my Facebook. Jun Aspacio at yahoo.com lang naman po yun. Wala akong hirap. and then private message me if you are interested. Meron po ako doon na competency-based HR. Meron din po ako doon how to do the job evaluation. I would suggest yung competency-based HR. Yung ginawa ko pong yun ay puro instructional. In other words, it's intended actually for the HR practitioner. Tuturuan siya noon kung paano niyang mai-implement yung mga bagay-bagay na yun. At may mga sample templates. In other words, talagang step by step. Ginawa ko po yun. So meron din po doon na job evaluation, corporate strategic planning. And then ngayon may ginagawa, natapos ko na rin yung the legal aspect of HR. Kasi napakaraming tanong tungkol doon sa, parang nakita mo na yata yung Ma'am Neddy, no? Hinahanap mo.
Hinahanap ko nga, sir.
Oo.
Sana.
Bale, popost ko na lang ma'am sa sa HR Calabarzon.
Ayan, ito.
Ayan, yan. Okay. Now, if they are interested, ma'am, they can access my Facebook. And then they can message me, PM nila ako. And then from there, sinasagot ko naman pong lahat yon. Okay. Talagang ang gusto kong anuhan nila yung HRM, the different aspects of HR, how to implement performance management, and then of course, job evaluation. I'm a believer of job evaluation. Itong job evaluation, medyo madugo. Madugo po ang job evaluation. Pero I'm telling you, my fellow HR practitioners, the moment you learn all those things, you can already tell yourself na magaling ka sa HR. Okay. Lalong-lalo na the different aspects of HR, performance management, job evaluation, corporate strategic map, and then your understanding of the law, my God. You are now a complete HR. Okay. Remember, HR work is about 75% legal. Or even higher probably. Halos lahat ng ginagawa natin based sa batas. At saka isa pa, my dear friends, another thing. As a fellow practitioner of HR to another HR practitioners, wag kang magkakamali sa ginagawa mo. Wag kang magkakamali because that will probably cost millions of pesos to the company. Lalong-lalo na if your company is unionized. There was a time, on my second year as an HR director, the top management challenged me if I could chair the CBA management panel. Kamot ako ng ulo. Ang pakialam ko sa CBA negotiation. Wala naman akong kaalam-alam dyan. Pero of course, dahil nag-aral din ako ng konting batas, medyo may alam ako. I accepted it. And then it went on for 10 years. Equivalent to 4 collective bargaining negotiations. Puro ako ang chairman. And I think that was the most challenging experience of mine as an HR practitioner. Imagine mo, kung bigla na lang. Actually, meron silang notice of strike. Sabi ko, okay, well, that is your right. Kaya there was a time noon, halos araw-araw, naroon yata ako sa Intramuros, sa Dole. Kaharap sila. Pero so far naman, God is good. Wala namang natuloy na. Meron sila nag-practice strike. But they were not able to paralyze the operation. They cannot do that. Okay, dahil inunahan ko na sila, pina-assume ko na sa Secretary of Labor. For every action of the union, there is always a counter action on the part of the management. So, doon lang po sa aking Facebook, they can access me, private message me, and I will entertain all your questions. Ang masarap po niyan, if you invest in any of those slides, merong aftermarket service. I can help you by through private message or even calling me up, and I will explain to you all those things. Okay.
Sir Jun, may question tayo dito.
Go ahead, ma'am.
I'm just curious, how do you echo what transpired in the strategic planning to the employees or subordinates? Thank you. Paano nyo daw po na i-echo o na isasabi sa mga employees yung usapan sa strategic planning. Tama ba ako, Sir Jason? Sa katanungan nyo? Pwede pong mag-unmute.
Okay, Sir Jason.
Tama po.
Oh, okay. Sir Jason, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Sir, pwede mo namang, ano yan eh, if you have a soft copy of the strategy map and the balance scorecard, at yung ginawa mo na, yung sa iyong department, anong department ka ba, Sir Jason?
Right now po, wala po ako ngayong ano eh. Pero I'm connected to school po, to a school.
Okay. Interesado ako dyan dahil
school.
dati academician ako eh. Okay, adi ipakita mo soft copy and then explain it step by step. Pareho ng ginawa natin ngayon. Paliwanag mo sa kanila. Pay attention on the key result areas, kung ano yung dapat nilang gawin. And then, pagkatapos, ipaliwanag mo yung KPI. Talagang ipapaliwanag mo unti-unti yan, sir. Nasa eskwelahan ka, ikaw ba ay chairman ng isang department, isang subject area?
No, sir. I'm just really curious about it. I'm not yet an educational manager, pero po I'm just trying to learn po from what you have said earlier from the discussion. That's why I'm asking.
Basta ipaliwanag mo lang sa kanila yun, sir. In other words, alam mo naman sa eskwelahan, napaka-importante ang detailed explanation. Detailed explanation, sir. Wala nang ibang, there's no other thing, there's no other way by which you can make other people aware of what transpired today and what you learned by simply transferring to them what you know. Ita-transfer mo lamang naman yun eh. Okay, pero I would advise na huwag kang magbigay ng mga hard copies na yun. Kasi kung minsan nare-reproduce eh. So explain it to them, have time, and explain to them each particular step in the strategic planning workshop. Kung ano yung ginawa ko ngayon, ganun din ang gawin mo sa kanila. And then of course, baka may stock knowledge ka tungkol sa eskwelahan na related doon sa balanced scorecard, you have to add them. Okay, now in my, I would suggest, Sir Jason, you know, there are two very important things in the academy. One is the grasp of the subject matter. Okay, for your information, Sir Jason, I started teaching in 1974 in University of the East and then Centro Escolar. Okay, so 1974, iba yata sa inyo, baka hindi pa pinapanganak. There are only two very important things. Dagdagan natin ng tatlo. Number one is your mastery of the subject matter. Number two is your teaching strategy. And number three, ikaw mismo. How you presented yourself. How you package yourself. Okay, napaka-importante po nun. Like for example, from college, bumaba ako ng high school. Kasi sa college, halos hindi ko magamit yung mga teaching strategies eh. Pero pagdating ko ng college, I developed my own teaching strategy. At alam mo ba, Sir Jason, kung ano yung teaching strategy ko? Learning by doing. Okay, kaya ang tawag nila sa akin sa De La Salle Subel, doon ako nagturo ng high school. Ang tawag nila sa akin doon, si Mr. Paek-ek. Can you imagine? I even transformed my classroom into a judicial court. Judicial court talaga. Merong prosecutor at merong defense. Pero ang topic nila ay tungkol sa kasaysayan ng Pilipinas because my subject is Araling Panlipunan. Okay. And they enjoyed it. Nag-enjoy talaga sila. Hindi ako masyadong nakatutok sa textbook. Okay. Nakatutok ako doon sa kung paano nilang isasagawa. In other words, the psychomotor aspect. The psychomotor aspect of what they are learning. So nariyan ang cognitive. Of course, pagka in-action nila yon, kasama na rin ang affective. And then the psychomotor. Ayan. So tatlo. So in other words, Sir Jason, kung paano yung inilalahad ang lesson sa mga estudyante, ganun din ang gawin mo sa mga co-teachers mo. Okay. So Sir Jason, I think okay na. If you want, kontakin mo ako sa Facebook. Ano tanong mo, sasagutin ko yan. Walang problema ho sa akin yun. In other words, you can have my Ma'am Nedy, you can have my 100% cooperation pagdating sa mga ganyan.
Yes, sir. Kaya naman po ang HR Collaboration
Saka,
sirs na pinagbigyan nyo kami ngayong hapon na ito na ma-share ang isa sa masterpiece nyo sa ating mga ka-HR via Zoom and via Facebook Live.
Paano naman kitang tatanggihan, ma'am? Pinagsamahan din naman tayo, no?
Sir, huwag mo na masyado yung buko. Joke. But anyway, sir.
My dear friends, knowledge is sharing. Always remember that. Knowledge is sharing. Huwag mo masyadong itambak sa utak mo yan. Baka mabaliw ka. Okay. I-share mo sa ibang tao. Yes, any other question?
Do we have any other questions from our participant this afternoon? I think, sir, kahit ako, wala ako masyadong naigawang question because you tackled it, you explained it thoroughly na talaga namang nagkaroon ako ng mas malalim na idea dahil ngayon pa lang kami mag-strategic planning ngayong March. Mas nadagdagan ang aking mga i-report o ang aking gagawin for the strategic planning for our 2023. Medyo na-late kami dahil talagang masyado kaming naging busy sa paghabol ng 2022.
Oh, alam mo, Ma'am Nedy, napakasimple lang naman ang strategic planning. Para ganito lang yan. Magbabakasyon kayo. Okay. Hindi mo pa alam kung saan kayo magbabakasyon. So, i-google mo yan. Saan kayo pupunta, di ba? Hahanapin mo dyan kung ano yung makikita sa lugar na ito. Meron bang matitirahan doon? Is the place safe? And then, magkano ang gagastusin natin? Iba mga bagay-bagay na mga ganyan. Kung nagkaroon ng aberya, madali bang tumakas doon sa lugar na yun? If it is an island, tapos titingnan mo external, pupunta ka ng island, pagkatapos araw ng tag-ulan, panahon ng tag-ulan, nagpapakamatay ka. So in other words, my dear friends, looking at the framework of strategic planning and the balance scorecard, it's no different from what you are doing in your life. Okay, like for example, nag-aral ka. Of course, bata ka pa nun. Ano ba ang gusto mong kunin? Ako, kumuha ako ng Bachelor of Arts. Okay? Kasi nga, gusto ng tatay ko, ako yung maging abogado. Pero unfortunately, napunta ako sa pagtuturo. Tinawagan ako ng chairman namin. Meeting namin is 11:30. Alam nyo ba na 11:30 kami nag-meeting? By 1 o'clock, I have already transformed myself into a faculty member. Hindi niya na ako pinauwi. Binigyan na ako ng schedule, diretso na po ako sa classroom. Hindi ko alam, nung teacher ko pala siya. Kaya pala, pagka siya ay mayroong meeting, ako lagi ang tinatawag niya, Mr. Aspacio, please take over. Take over naman si Jun Aspacio, sip-sip eh. Okay, take over naman siya. Ayun pala, minamataan na niya na ako. In other words, my dear friends, if you are the HR, no, if you're already working, huwag mong tanggihan ang challenge sa'yo. Like for example, in my case, imagine mo on my second year, hamunin ako ng Executive Vice President, the highest ranking officer ng organization. Sabi niya sa akin, Jun, can you handle the collective bargaining negotiation? You'll be the chairman of the management panel. Siyempre, hindi agad ako nakakibo. Pero pa-importante ko muna, pataas ka ng presyo. Badlang huli, sinabi ko, yes, I'll take care of that. Yung first salbo ko sa CBA, after 7 meetings, tapos ang CBA, pirmado na kaagad. Beginner's luck. So, ganun lang po yun, ma'am. Ang strategic planning, parang buhay. Another thing, hindi ba tayo po ang tawag sa atin human resources? Whatever we do in HR is always connected to your life, to your own life. Bakit pa tinawag na human? Kung hindi mo alam yun. In other words, my dear friends, when you come up with some strategies in HR, isipin mo muna sa'yo, sarili mo. Use yourself as the guinea pig. And then pagkatapos, do a self-assessment of what you are thinking. As an HR head, my dear friends, ang pinaka-importanting ginagawa mo is mag-isip pa kung anong mga pakulo. Okay, kung anong mga pakulo. At pagkatapos, later on, tingnan mo na ngayon kung ano magiging reaction ito ng mga tao. Walang kahirap-hirap. Kasi nga, human resources. You are also a human being and that you are also a resource. And then, of course, you're also an employee. So in other words, whatever strategy or whatever program that you implement in your department, dapat tama. Why? Dahil mag-i-impact din sa buhay mo yun eh. You're not that exempted even if you are the head or the vice president of HR of their company. You're not exempted from those procedures. In other words, be a model. Walang exempted pagdating sa pag ginawa nyo na yung mga policies na yon. And very important to HR, the very first thing that I did sa HR, aside from flow charting, is inayos ko ang employee manual. Because the employee manual is the Bible of the HR. Yun lang. Pero situate that it is legally compliant. Kaya for me, my dear friends, a very important competence of an HR practitioner, you should know the law. Yan. Tapos ko na yung legal aspect of HR. Ipopost kaya sa HR Calabarzon. Okay. For those, for that amount, my dear friends, napakamura na po noon yun. At saka isa pa, I can assure you na those PowerPoint presentations, matututo ka. Kasi that's how I learned HR. That's how I learned. Sabi, ulitin ko, I entered HR with zero knowledge, my dear friends. Zero knowledge talaga yun. And it took me 3 years to really understand what HR is. Yung certification course ko sa UP Sol-Air, later on, Dr. Binghay invited me to conduct seminar in UP Sol-Air. Can you imagine? Dati participant ka lang, tapos tinatawagan ka nila mag-conduct ng seminar. In other words, sariling sikap po. Sariling sikap ang HR. So any more question?
Actually, sir, wala nang question but they would like to thank you from Ma'am Rowena Tan. Thank you po, Sir Jun. Daming new learning. From Ma'am Cynthia, thank you po for the wisdom, Sir Jun. Not just informative, but full of wisdom in HR. From Ma'am Helen, thank you, Sir Jun, for sharing a very informative session. Very clear and informative po from Ma'am Michelle. From Ma'am Amelita Magno, thank you, Sir Jun. From Sir Jason, thank you, Sir Jun. All the best to everyone. And lastly, from Ma'am May, Buenacosa, thank you very much. Bago po mag-alisan sana ang lahat, nais ko po sana kayong maimbitahan for, syempre, mandatory picture taking. Can we please open our video? Hi, Sir Gino.
Is there any participant na kilala niya ako personally? Meron ba?
Joke lang.
I-add nyo na ako sa Facebook. At doon tayo magkwentuhan.
Actually, guys, Sir Jun is kagaya ng mga ating mga speaker mentor. Pwede po lumapit sa kanya pag may mga question kayo. And
anytime, ma'am.
Opo. At syempre si Sir Jun po ay naging boss ko. Naging boss ko po sa Cavite Medical Center. Ayan. At ako po ang kanyang compenben. Anyway po, let's smile! Puro stolen shot kasing kuha ko kanina, sir. Pinadala ko siya sa ulo.
Ilan ang umattend, ma'am?
Ngayon, sir, kanina naka-36 tayo pero bigla silang nawawala lahat. Tapos meron tayong viewers kanina na 50 sa Facebook. I think manonood sila ng mga replay. At okay lang naman po, pero ulitin natin ulit ang ating bagong policy po. Para po sa lahat. Ay, wait po. Ipakita ko lang po yung ating policy sa lahat. Sa lahat po ng interesadong kumuha ng e-certificate at gustong tulungan ng HR Calabarzon na magkaroon ng every week na HRE knowledge, please do click or access our e-certificate link. Available po siya hanggang mamaya po, 11:59 PM lang po. Ngayong araw lang po. Hindi na po siya extended hanggang next week. Ang e-certificate po ay isa-send sa inyo after 2 working days. not including Saturday, Sunday, and holiday. Which means Wednesday po ng within 24 hours ay i-email po sa inyong in-input na email address ang inyong e-certificate. Please do ensure na sa Google Form po ay ilagay niyo po ang inyong first name, middle initial, and last name only. Yung email address po, accurate. Ang minimal fee po natin ay 50 pesos per attendee per webinar. Yan. Pero bago po ang lahat, sir, gusto po sana namin i-present ito ulit, siyempre. Hindi kami magsasawang magpasalamat, Sir Jun, sa pagbibigay nyo ng pagkakataon sa amin na ma-share ng free at may paliwanag ng free ang isa sa inyong masterpiece, ang how to facilitate the corporate strategic planning.
Anytime, Ma'am Neddy. Anytime.
Maraming salamat, sir, ulit sa pagbigay nyo o pag-share nyo po ng inyong invaluable knowledge and expertise as a resource speaker for today's 77th HRE Knowledge. Maraming salamat, sir. Muli po.
Thank you very much too.
Yes, sir. Kami po ay nag-iimbita sa mga ka-HR natin na gusto pong mag-post o magpa-advertise ng ating company job opening. Kagaya ko po, may job opening po kami. Nangangailangan po ako ng HR resource specialist. So, magiging assistant ko po kung papayag kayo na makasama ako. AR accounting specialist, purchasing specialist, junior warehouse supervisor, QA QC specialist, maintenance technician, and driver dicer. Please do email your resume or portfolio at hrd.villagegourmet@gmail.com. Muli po, ito po ang ating policy para sa e-certificate. At ang ating pong GCash number ay 0919-009-6339. Huwag po kayo mag-alala, hindi po tayo magbabago ng number. Ito ang ating magiging number hanggang sa tayo ay magkakasama. At sa lahat ng gustong kumuha ng e-certificate, please do scan our QR code. I-open ko po siya ilalive ko po siya hanggang eksaktong 4:00 para po sa mga interesadong kumuha o mag-avail ng e-certificate for today's HRE Knowledge. Muli mga ka-HR, Sir Jun, maraming salamat sa pagsama sa amin at sa pagbigay ng inyong knowledge. Very informative po talaga, kaya wala kaming masyadong question. At sa mga manonood ng replay, kung may question po kayo, please do chat Mr. Jun Aspacio at kayo po ay kanyang sasagutin. Muli mga ka-HR, maraming salamat. Magkita-kits po tayo sa susunod na HRE Knowledge Series of 2023.
Thank you to Ma'am Neddy and thank you everybody.
Thank you po. Bye po. Bye po mga ka-HR.
Thank you po. Bye.